where the fun begins.
Hello everyone and welcome to the New York Empoleon debut draft analysis in the GBA Main League Season 9. We are going to be taking the spot of one of the coaches who has left, so this does not guarantee us a permanent, lifelong spot in the GBA, but instead offers us an opportunity to play against some of the best battlers in League format, and I'm super excited to be a part of the GBA once again. The D-League run ended in a way that was not ideal, in a way that I would hope that does not happen again, but I don't expect it to be a repeated type of thing, and it was a freak incident that happens, and it is what it is. Now, we don't have to talk about that. We are moving on to an Ubers format. Now, it is worth noting that my only championship technically, not technically, I have a championship. My only championship comes from a technically Ubers league, in which the ICBA, in which there were Ubers allowed in the format. This is a little bit different. First off, I didn't draft an Uber in that format, and second off, I just got a phone call. And second off, I did not. There a lot of these Ubers were not allowed. Like a lot of the Ubers that we are allowed to get now were not eligible in the ICBA season, and we just saw how I did in the PCL, where I also didn't draft an Uber, but where a lot of these Pokemon were allowed. So I was also brought into this draft. I had the 10th overall pick, as is standard for the New York Empoleon in any Wi-Fi league. We are never going to get a pick above 8th, so we had the 10th overall pick, and we were actually brought in on the evening in which we were picking. It wasn't like we were starting the draft and everyone's like, okay, go. I got brought into the league, into the Discord and everything, and they were like, all right, it's your pick. And I had to look at what the first 9 picks were. I didn't even know. I was like, oh god. I had no plan. I didn't even know I was going to be part of the league. I wasn't looking at Ubers. I didn't know the tiers. I didn't have access to the doc. So I was like, oh, okay. So fast forward about an hour and a half of panicking, trying to figure out any sort of semblance of a draft plan. And I can't even argue that there was a draft plan, but there was at least a semblance of mons that I was excited to use. And it starts with Dialga. Now, this is the first mon that I picked, and it's the first mon that I was like, I regret. Do I regret Dialga? No. I think Dialga is a great mon in format. I think it's amazing coverage moves in all sorts of crazy things like Earth Power, Ice Beam, Flamethrower, Thunderbolt, if I'm not mistaken. It gets Flash Cannon, obviously, as stab. It gets Iron Head on the physical side. It gets Draco Meteor or Dragon Claw or Dragon Pulse. It's got Rocks. It's got Roar. It's got all sorts of things and setup moves, whatever you want. Base 150 special attack and 120 attack as well. I believe 120 in both of its defenses. So it is a Batmon, and it is a great dual stab to have. I cannot say that this is a bad mon to have picked, but I was debating between Dialga and Ho-Oh, and I think I should have gone with Ho-Oh. I do like the idea of Ho-Oh, and I can deal with the Stealth Rock weakness a little bit later, but that is what it is. We decided to grab Dialga, which I think is a really, really good mon. The other thing I was looking at was Shaman Sky, which is actually tier 2, and I think that if I'd had more time and thought about it a little bit more, Shaman Sky as a tier 2 would have been the best play I could have made. I think Shaman Sky is an amazing, amazing mon. We all know my luck with like flinching something, but I'd rather take it and not get flinched as opposed to get flinched. But I grabbed Dialga, and I don't regret it. I think Dialga is a great mon, and I'm really excited to use it, and it's got really good options. And the trick here was building a team around Dialga that was going to support it well. I want Dialga to be that thing that everyone has to fear, but I want mons around it that are going to support it. So what are Dialga's weaknesses? Its base 90 speed lets it down a little bit, certainly, and it's got weaknesses to a lot of common priority types, including fighting, which is a huge problem. Ice moves are neutral against it, which is not great. So those are really common priority typing. So I figure with my second pick, what I'm going to do is grab Tapu Lele, which is going to allow me to get that mon that can deal with the priority in that Psychic Terrain just removes it. Dialga's 90 speed now looks a little bit better. Tapu Lele can be run Scarf, and if you're not running a Scarfer, you're certainly not outspeeding it with your mons. And let's be honest, Psychic and Fairy stabs are stupidly good, and this thing also gets absolutely incredible coverage. I've used Gardevoir to major success in League format before, and I've used Lele to like moderate success as well, but I haven't had as much opportunities to use it. So I'm actually very excited to use this thing, and I think it does pair well with Dialga. The speed tiers 90, 95, okay, I can deal with that later, but we are going to start off with two really strong offensive threats that prevent the opponent from using the priority moves that they definitely want to be using to wear down Dialga, which I think is actually a really good way to support it. And not to mention, Finny's terrain is going to be a problem for Dialga because of the fact that it's going to weaken its Dragon-type attacks, and Lele's terrain can get rid of Finny's terrain. So having Terrain Wars is something I'm willing to do, and Psychic Terrain is arguably the best of the terrains, since this thing does get huge, massive benefits from terrain on its own. And its incredible special offensive move pool and kit, as well as some really cool like tech moves that you can run. And I just think this thing, like Gardevoir, which is something I'm very comfortable with and very good with, I do think Lele is going to help my team out a lot in the long run. It is an incredible, incredible Mon in format. Is it going to be great in an Ubers format? Well, I think it's going to be a little bit tempered and a little bit worse than it would be in a non-Ubers format, but I do think this thing has the opportunity to just literally run train on some teams if they're built in certain ways, and that is something that, like, Psychic Weak teams are basically just not going to be viable against this particular build, which is awesome. So next up, as we're going around the horn again, I've got Dialga, I've got Lele. I'm like, okay, what am I missing right now? And I was, again, trying to build around making Dialga the most successful I could. And so I decided I wanted something that was going to resist the ground-type attacks that Dialga is weak to, as well as the fighting-type attacks, which is, again, a flying-type is going to be the check here that I'm looking for. So I actually decided to grab Zapdos, get some bulk behind me, and Defog and Volt Switch, Volt Turn on its own. It gets Volt Turn coverage. This thing can run Sub-Toxic. It can Baton Pass. It subs. It can... I can't Baton Pass speed. I participated in that D-League, guys. Let's just talk about that for a second and move forward. Can't Baton Pass speed. Not going to happen. Definitely not going to get to the finals and make a mistake or anything like that. But we are going to be using Zapdos this season, hopefully to major effect, and have this thing be incredibly helpful throughout the season. Reliable recovery and Roost, which is something that my team definitely was lacking a little bit of, sort of that reliable recovery, that base 100 that I didn't really have yet. So 90, 95, 100, and next round we're not going to change that. We're just going to get another base 100 Mon, but it's okay. We're just going to rock out with what we got. So Zapdos is going to be something that's going to help me with my pivoting, my momentum game, getting into Dialga for free with either a slow pivot from Zapdos or a fast pivot if I wanted it. Is going to allow Dialga to really succeed. And again, like I said, I did want to build around Dialga being something that's not going to have to carry rocks every week, because it's the last thing I want is Dialga to just be a stealth rocker. That's definitely something that I think will... It gets rocks, and I think that's helpful, and there are some weeks that I certainly want to run rocks on it, but I just don't want it to become a mono stealth rock Uber. I mean, that's a waste of an Uber slot, you know? I might as well grab something that's going to be really effective. So Dialga is something that I'm building around, and I'm trying really consciously to make sure Dialga is going to have a lot of success this season. So following up Zapdos, I decided to grab Victini. My front office and I were going back and forth on Alolan Muck or Victini at this point. I think Alolan Muck would have been the better play. It is one of the best Lele checks in the game, and if I had grabbed it and no one else could have it, then I could just take it off the board and I could use it this season, and it would really have... I think it would have been great. Literally gets taken the very next pick by Envy. So, I think Alolan Muck would have been the play. I think I could have potentially waited on Victini for a turn or two of the wheel. That being said, I used Victini in the D-League. I love this thing. That's the only other time I've ever used Victini, honestly, but it hits like a truck. This thing is stupid strong. V-Create from a Victini, it's base 180. Like, that's insane, and you can power that up with a Fire EMZ. Spoilers, this is one of my Z users, and that thing can become like base 220 power attack with no drawback and 100% accurate. Like, that's absurd. This thing is a nuke to nobody's business. And the things that handle Dialga, the ice types, the fighting types, those just don't want to stare down a Victini. Now, ground is something that I have to deal with. Zapdos is helpful, but ground is something I'm definitely going to have to deal with as it's ever moving forward in this draft. But honestly, those things that can deal with Dialga just really don't want to deal with Victini. And Victini with Psychic Terrain boosted Zen Headbutts that are 99% accurate and can flinch 20% of the time. Not to mention, coming off of its base 100 attack stat, not to mention you can't priority hit this thing, so it's going to be able to attack you probably before you can attack it, especially if I run it Scarf. I have a lot of Mons here that can be run Scarf, which I really, really like, because if you're playing a Psychic Terrain game, you're definitely going to want Mons that are benefiting from that Scarf. But as we're going to see here, I have no speed tiers. I mean, I have like one speed tier. It's like 90 to 100. That's what I'm hitting. First 4 mons, all that. So I decided for the rest of my draft, I don't want any more mons that are going to fall in the 90 to 100 range. I don't think that'll help me. I think it's way better for me to just have no mons that do that as opposed to mons that do that. And we are going to rock out with the with those 4 as my 90 to 100 range. And I figured get those 4. Those are probably the best 4 I could have grabbed in terms of that range. And then we're going to mix and match around that to try to figure out how to make a team work. But so now we've gotten our tier 1, our tier 2, and 2 tier 3s. We're just going down the list, and actually I just continue to go down the list the entire time. Spoilers, just the way that my draft worked out. That was not necessarily the intended plan, but once Alolan Muck got sniped, I figured I was not going to let anyone snipe my next couple of picks, and I wanted them more than I wanted anything else. So next up, I decided to grab Dido. Dido is amazing in an Ubers format, and Dido I think is something that I am incredibly comfortable with. It's something that I have used many times to great success in League format. I think it can give you so much information, and not to mention, so few teams are designed to counter the Pokemon that are on them, right? So like, if you want to beat something, usually hitting it with its own attack is a pretty solid way to do it. If something is setting up on you, then just take the setup and just be like, thanks, bro, I'll just use that now myself. Now that I've chipped you down with my other mons, Dido's going to come in. And again, like I said, Choice Scarfers are going to be rampant on this team. It's something that I definitely can run a whole bunch of and actually not feel too bad about. But Choice Scarfers are fine when you're playing around Psychic Terrain because you're going to be the fastest thing on the field because the priority that other mons love to use just isn't there. Weavile does not get its Ice Shards. Breloom's not going to be hitting me with Mach Punches. Conkeldurr is going to be really slow and not hitting with Mach Punches. Honestly, Conkeldurr may not even come against me because of the matchup it has, even though it matches up pretty well against Dialga. So, like, I'm really building around that Dialga here and trying to make sure that that has the most chance for success. Ditto giving me so much information, telling me when it's free to go into Dialga or what the counters are to certain Pokemon is just such a valuable asset to a team. And even if I don't bring Ditto, it's a tier 4 Mon in an Ubers format. Even if I don't bring Ditto, it still puts in work because the other person has built in a specific way to deal with Ditto. Whether that's running a lot of Substitute, which is something that I see a lot of, whether that's running a lot of Mons that have really specific movesets that can't hit themselves just at all, like, then I don't bring Ditto, and you've just done this weird thing where your moveset's like not optimal because you didn't want the move that was going to hit you super effectively. So Ditto, very, very valuable Mon in format, and I think it's one of the best Mons in format. And as a tier 4, I thought it was incredibly valuable to me. And as to start handling a speed tier problem, nothing is better than Ditto. So at this point, I'm just going to be like, I was looking at my draft and I was like, well, I've got Dialga as Stealth Rocker, and I don't want Dialga to be my Stealth Rocker all the time, so maybe I should grab a Stealth Rocker. So I actually grabbed Donphan here at this point. Donphan is my first Mon that's got priority outside if you want to argue that Quick Attack Victini exists, which I have brought before, but I don't think it's a very good Mon. Donphan does have access to Ice Shard. It's got Play Rough, Gunk Shot, it's got Seed Bomb, it's got Knock Off, it's got Earthquake, Stab Earthquake, it's got Stealth Rocks, it's got Rapid Spin. Like, it's actually got a ridiculous move pool. Donphan is a very solid Mon in format, and I actually am coming to love it. I'm using it in the TBL right now, and I actually think it's putting in a ton of work, so I'm excited to use Donphan. Sturdy is incredibly valuable as well as an ability. It's immune to Sandstorm damage if someone does draft a Sand team, like Dialga is, or I'm not drafting a Sand team, but if I did, Dialga and Donphan would actually be pretty good pieces of it. And, you know, just generally having access to priority is something I needed to have in order to just have the possibility that I run it certain weeks or against Mons that are off the ground. Ice-type priority, obviously the best, because flying types that are off the ground resist the fighting priority, so Ice Shard's actually a really good particular Ice-type move to have, or priority move to have, and Donphan does give me access to just some really good coverage moves and typings and speed tiers that I didn't have before. Now at this point I was looking at my draft, and the one thing my whole team is missing, except for Zapdos, is any sort of recovery. I don't have a lot of recovery moves, I don't have a lot of options for that, so I wanted a Wish Passer, and I wanted a Bulky Water. There are 2 water types that learn Wish. They are Vaporeon and Alomomola. And those are your options. If you want a water type that has Wish, you're picking one of those. So I decided I was going to take Vaporeon. This thing, apparently I grabbed it at the right time because everybody else was also looking at it. Cleric support, Wish support, Scalds are all over the place. It's got Baton Pass on its own, so I can just Baton Pass me some Acid Armors, or just Wish into a slow Baton Pass to get the actual health back on something like Dialga. And scouting out for Dialga, This thing is actually a very, very versatile mon, despite it running a lot of sets more often than others. If I wanted to run something like a Rindo Berry or a Wakan Berry in order to take that hit a little bit better, I certainly can do that. Leftovers is a great item for it always, but I've seen people rock out with, you know, yes, there's the Wish Toxic Protect sets, but there's also Scald, Ice Beam, offensive Modest sets that exist. There's also, you could run, I mean, honestly, this thing could probably run Weakness Policy, take a hit, and dish back a ton of damage. Maybe throw out an Icy Wind so that you can get the speed control. Weakness Policy into Acid Armor could really work, and then Baton Pass that into Dialga, and suddenly you're like, that's looking real scary. So like, yeah, Weakness Policy, Acid Armor, Baton Pass, Vaporeon in an Ubers League in the GBA. If someone's gonna do it, I will do it. So expect this Vaporeon not to always come with the Toxic Wish Protect Scald. Like, just don't expect that every week. It's something that Vaporeon does very, very well, arguably better than anything else in the game, except maybe Albemola, which passes slightly bigger wishes. But Vaporeon is an incredibly valuable asset to have on a team, and I think this thing is going to be very, very helpful for me as this season progresses. Now, like I said, I didn't want anything else in the 90 to 100 range, but I still don't have anything above that. My team very, very slow right now. So I have a bunch of free picks. We had 260 points to use, and they could only be from tier 3 and below. Tier 3s were 100, tier 4s were, I think, 80, and tier 5s were 60, something like that. So you could grab like T3, T4, Tier 4, Tier 5, or you can only grab one Tier 3. So no team could have more than 3 Tier 3s, and you weren't allowed to grab a Tier 1 or Tier 2. So I decided to, I didn't have a grass type, I didn't have speed, so I decided to grab a fast grass type out of tier 3, which was going to be Serperior. Contrary is incredibly useful as an ability, and again, I do have Baton Passing from Zapdos and Vaporeon that can go into this thing. Subseed is a real set that this can run. Glare is incredibly valuable to have. 113 is an awesome speed tier, and if you're not going to hit this thing with priority and it outspeeds your team, good luck. This thing is scary. You can also run Coil sets if you really want to. Coil Knockoff. It's got that. It's got Dragon Tail if I wanted to run some sort of phasing move. So very, very cool mon. I think it has Mirror Coat as well. So it's got lots of options for possible movesets. And it is a very cool mon that has a lot of versatility. And my ground type weakness exists in this game. So Dialga, Victini. I have only Zapdos that resists ground right now. So Serperior gives me a second ground resist, which is something I was desperately asking for. And I do think that this is going to be incredibly helpful as well. Just taking on a lot of mons. And just being a generally fast nuisance with Glare, which is, don't overlook that, you know? So, speed is still an issue, and I can't look at Tier 3 anymore, so I'm looking down at Tier 4, Tier 4 and 5, and I decided to look into Tier 4 and grab Crobat. Zapdos and Donphan are good removal. Serperior also gets Defog, but getting one more Defogger and a flying type to get off the ground, so no more ground weakness there, which is really nice, as well as something base 130. Crobat actually fit my team incredibly well. I was sniped a whole bunch of times. I haven't really talked about all the snipes that I had throughout this draft, mostly just Alolan Muck, because that was the one I was most frustrated by. But it was funny because I was looking at Shaman Sky, that got picked the very next pick after my first one, and then I was looking at Alolan Muck, and I didn't take it, and that got picked the very next pick after my pick as well. So, lots of snipes going on early on in the draft. At the end of the draft, I didn't get sniped as much, but Crobat fit the team very, very well. I don't have a particular Psychic type weakness right now, so I'm not too worried about grabbing it. And yeah, it's weak to Electric as well, like Vaporeon, but I do have the Donphan, the Dialga, Serperior that can all kind of handle those attacks if they need to. And so I decided to grab Crobat here. Its base 130 is going to be really, really good, I think, this season. And it's going to be able to defog things. It's going to be able to nasty plot. You know, Nasty Bat's real. Nasty Bat's real. Don't sleep on it. It's got ridiculous coverage on both sides, and I think it's going to be a really valuable mon this season. And next up, we do have the Scrappy. Scrappy is because everyone looked at me and said, you have no Dark Resist, you have nothing to switch into knockoffs. Now, Scrappy doesn't appreciate knockoffs, but like, it can switch into a knockoff. And I recognize that I have very little in terms of what can switch into a knockoff. outside of Scrappy, but Scrappy is going to be a mon that I think is incredibly helpful this season. It's a speed tier that, like, it's a slow mon, but it does get Dragon Dance and can be boosted up in terms of speed. Fighting and Dark Stabs are incredibly useful, as well as just knockoff in general. It gets Drain Punch for recovery. It gets Bulk Up if I wanted to go with that route, a little bit more bulky set. Quad weakness to Fairy sucks, yes, but Victini can switch in on Fairy attacks, Crobat can switch in on Fairy attacks, so we've got options for those. And I do think that Scrappy is going to be able to put in the finest of work this season as a member of the New York Empoleon. It is a Tier 5 Mon, so at this point I have only points left for a Tier 4. I don't have a Mega yet. It wasn't required that you get a Mega, but I figured I was going to grab one. Don't have enough speed yet, I figured. So my last one is going to be a fast Mega, and it is going to be Mega Beedrill. I was back and forth on Mega Beedrill and Mega Arrow. But once I took Crobat, I was definitely going to take Mega Beedrill. Toxic Spike support exists now. It is base 145. Outspeed that in Psychic Terrain, I dare you. If you don't have a Mega Arrow or a Mega Alakazam, which is something I was also looking at because Mega Alakazam in Psychic Terrain is horrifying. But I decided not to grab that since I already had 2 Psychic types. And I decided to grab Mega Beedrill. Poison Jab, adaptability. I mean, everyone knows what it does, but it does it so well. And I just think Mega Beedrill is incredibly useful. And U-turn, again, fast U-turn support from this. I can have slow U-turn support from something like, or slow Baton Pass support from the Vaporeon, or slower U-turn support from the Zapdos. So I do have options for a lot of Volt Turn, a lot of getting my Mons in and out, with Crobat as well, having access to those kinds of moves. So getting Mons into Dialga, getting my opportunity to go into Dialga on a safe opportunity when I think someone's either going to try to hit my Mega Beedrill with something, you know, like a Psychic type attack and then just go into Dialga, or maybe they're going for Rock type attack on the Mega Beedrill and I can go into Dialga, or if I really want to go into Lele, predicting them to go for maybe or Victini on a Fire type attack. I've got options like that, so I do think Mega Beedrill paired super well with this team. It is fast, it is incredibly strong physical attacker, which is something I definitely didn't have yet. And I think this team, I've never played Ubers before. So someone tell me, how do you think this team stacks up against the other teams? Is it the best team? I actually would probably say no. I looked at MV's team and I was like, are you kidding me? Who let MV get all that stuff? I did. I didn't take a little muck from him, so he took it instead. But that's the way this is going to go. So I don't think this is the best team in the league right now. But I do think that the New York Empoleon and myself as a coach are going to be able to take these Mons, these 11 Mons, and make them work. See, the thing is, you don't have to have the #1 ranked power ranking team. You have to have the team that makes you comfortable playing your style of game such that the team works the way you want it to. And in all fairness and in all honesty, I think this team does everything I want it to do. It plays around Psychic Terrain well, and it plays around Dialga well. And those are the 2 things I was looking at when I was building it. So we've got options here for this team to be successful. I am so excited to announce that I am a part of the GBA Season 9. It is going to be the final GBA season in Gen 7, so we'll see. If someone had told me at the beginning of the Gen 7 life cycle that I would have been playing the GBA at the end of it, I would have just laughed. I would have said, you're crazy. So this is a huge honor, so thank you to MV, Jolt, and Tom, who were the ones who accepted me finally, and a special shout out to Gator, who's the one who actually reached out to me specifically and said, hey man, I'm gonna have to step away for this season. Would you specifically want my spot? So shout outs to all of you guys. Gator said Kyle's the one who mentioned me, so shout outs to Kyle as well. I'm just gonna shout out everybody in the GBA Main League basically. But thank you all so much for watching. I will see you guys back here when we take on our Week 1 match against Jolt and the Kansas City Jirachiefs. We are jumping right into this Token Minorities duel Week 1. It's going to be crazy. So I hope you all are excited for that. I'm certainly pumped up for a matchup against Jolt. And I hope you guys are excited for the New York Empoleon to do what we did in the GBA D League and hopefully make a deep run into the season. But I was warned to never ever battle on a date again, and so I won't. Thank you all so much for watching. I apologize for how long this has been. It's been a lot to talk about. So I will let you guys all go at this point, and I will see you guys next week as we take on Jolt and the Kansas City Jirachiefs in Week 1 of the GBA Season 9. Take care, everybody.